Which NDA clauses can be negotiated? Welcome to this Q Legal video. If you're a startup founder planning to use an NDA, it is important to know that not all clauses are considered standard. In this video, we will discuss some key clauses as seen in the Gov UK NDA templates and see how much flexibility you have. First is a purpose clause. This explains why confidential information is being shared. For example, with the one-way NDA, it could be to discuss a business idea with an investor. This clause is negotiable. Founders will want this clause to be specific, such that the other party cannot disclose this information to other parties without explicit permission. Another is a duration clause. This sets out how long the obligation to not disclose confidential information lasts. Sometimes it's indefinite, but many agreements are set to a fixed period, such as 5 years. This clause is commonly negotiated, especially if one party thinks the confidentiality period is too long. This could be, for instance, if the confidentiality period was set to be indefinite. Furthermore, with regard to the confidentiality clause and who can access the confidential information, this clause explains who the recipient can share the information with, such as employees. This clause can sometimes be negotiated, particularly if a company wants to allow disclosure to investors or consultants. The governing law and jurisdiction clause. The governing law clause says which country's laws apply if there's a dispute, and the jurisdiction clause says which courts can hear the dispute. These two clauses can sometimes be negotiated, especially when the parties are based in different countries. It is important to seek legal advice when negotiating these clauses. Return of confidential information clause. The return of confidential information clause requires a recipient to return or destroy copies of confidential information when requested. There can be carve-outs, whereby the receiving party has a legal obligation to maintain certain records that contain confidential information. Intellectual property rights. The intellectual property clause makes clear that sharing information does not transfer ownership of any IP rights. This clause is extremely rarely changed because it protects the disclosing party's IP rights. Disclosure required by law. Finally, there is usually a clause allowing disclosure if required to by law or a competent authority. This clause cannot realistically be negotiated because companies must comply with their legal obligations. Understanding which clauses are flexible and which are standard can help founders avoid unnecessary disputes and negotiate NDAs more confidently. Thank you for watching this Q Legal video.